Hello, Uncle Jim here. To be a good trader, you really have to find good companies and do your homework. Today, I want to share with you how I find the companies that I like to invest in, especially the ones that I can do quite well with selling options on. So stay tuned. I think you're really going to enjoy what I have for you today. Okay, let's jump right in and hit the important points. Now, as many of you know, I like really good value companies, companies that have good financials, increasing profits, increasing revenue, minimal debt, and also that pay dividends and are growing those dividends. That's something I've shared in a lot of these videos. And I like finding these same kind of companies that are optionable. So not only pay a dividend, but also where I can sell covered calls and puts on them and earn fairly good premium. So I don't only look at the financials, I also look at the option chains. I look to see if there's a lot of expirations or enough expirations, as well as fairly good volume, fairly good number of strikes. And then if they do, then I add them to my watch list and I use that as a way to kind of compare this group of stocks that I've found over time. So typically my watch list continue to grow. Sometimes I pull somebody off or a company off because of poor earnings or something has changed in the market. And then, but mostly I've not removed very many companies, only a few here and there. Um, but let's jump into some of the ways I do find these companies to sell options on, as well as to earn really good dividends. Because again, it's to me it's a combination of the dividends and the options premium that really gives you a huge amount of inflow with income. Earning those dividends. Like currently, an example usually is the best way to share. I'm currently earning around 1,800 a month just in dividends, and I've been able to bring in close to another 3,000. I think this in November I brought in over 3,100. I think October was 3,700. So I'm averaging around 3,000 in options premium, another 1,800 in dividends, and my hope is to increase that over time. And I should be able to, once we come out of this bear market and the market starts treading up again, my guess is the income should even go higher. Now, how do I find these companies? And I do have a number of different means for doing it. One that I really like is Invest Talk. It's a podcast. They usually do a daily show. They're in California. They do it at the end of the day. So I usually like they'll do a new podcast usually around 6 or 7 tonight, but I'll listen to it tomorrow morning, typically when I go walk my dog. So when I take her out in the morning, and it's usually 45 minutes long, I'll listen to them. They share a lot of good facts and information. They also have people calling in asking about companies. So I've gotten some ideas related to just listening to Invest Talk. And, you know, they've been a big help to me, and I've gotten some of my ideas from them. So I encourage you to take a look at Invest Talk. You can find them on any podcast player. Um, and then another tool that I really like that I like to read on a daily basis, and I've got the app on my phone, is Seeking Alpha. And there's a lot of people who write really good articles, blog posts, and will provide input as to companies that may be something you should be looking at that you hadn't thought about. And I do get some interesting ideas from that too. So again, Seeking Alpha, and you can find them. You can just Google them, and it'll come right up, or you can look at your app store and potentially add that to your phone. So those are the kind of the two quick options that you can use. The next group that I'm going to talk about will be in the next part of this video. I'm actually going to show you firsthand some of the other sites I use that have been very helpful, and I'm also going to share with you some of the tools on Schwab that makes it really easy to find good companies, some really good tools that they have. So stay tuned. Let's jump into that next part of the video. Now, here's the first website I wanted to share with you. But before I jump into the details about it, I do want to mention, please subscribe, hit that like button. Any details you might want to learn about my memberships will be be below, as well as links to these any of these tools that I talk about today. So that being said, let's just jump into it. This is a site I found more recently. It's called Barchart.com, and what I really like about it is it goes into a lot of details, and you can do a lot of research. You can look at stocks, options, ETFs, futures, currencies, all sorts of information. I'm primarily now just using it for the most active stock options. And they also do this with ETFs, so you can switch between stocks or ETFs, but it'll show you on a daily basis, um, what is the most active at any particular time. So it's got IV rank, it's got options volume, and you can actually search through these. Now I don't currently have a membership. I'm looking at potentially joining this, because what one thing it does do is you only get, I believe, the first 20 or 25. So you can see Ford is having a really busy day. But if we look at volume, so if we do options volume, you can see it's only the top of the top, and you only see 25. You can join and become a member, and I think you get up to, yeah, it looks like 500. So I can only see the first 20, but even with that 20, I can see, Ford is very active today. Microsoft is too. Two companies I've worked with in the past. Google, again, is another company. It's up over 101. It's got a fairly good IV rank, and it shows you here percent puts and percent calls. So it has a lot of information, and you can again search through it and determine what you're looking at. Like here's also Google. Don't know how much detail. They give you quite a bit of detail. Now you can't go. There's some things that are locked down, just like I just showed you. You can only look at 20 at a time versus 500. It does lock down some information, and I think it limits once you become a member. You can see all these advertisements. They do get a little bit annoying. But it has a lot of the information and details you need right here at your fingertips. So this is something I've recently started to look at, and it's been helpful to find, especially if I can't find something to sell a put on, I'll jump into this barchart.com and use it to find something that may be active. And again, I'm looking at potentially doing a membership. If you've actually used this before, please leave me a comment and let me know. I'd be curious to what you think of it and how it's worked out for you. So this is the first tool. So next, let me jump to another one that I've shared in previous videos, and that is the what I call the dividend aristocrats list of the dogs of the Dow, and it's literally the dogsofthedow.com. Again, don't worry about the website and finding it. I'll have details below in the comments section or the description area. I'll have a link directly to this, but it's just has the dogs of the Dow, and it's real basic. So it gives you the link so you can look at details about each company. You can look at market cap. This is one thing I really like. You can find dividend yield. You could see who pays some of the higher dividends, and you can sort that. You can also, so when I'm using this, I could see, well, let's see who's down that's paying a pretty good dividend, like Walgreens. And I invest in Walgreens. I currently have some puts that I've sold with it, and so since it's down nearly 1% today, the dividend rate is also quite good. So if I didn't currently own Walgreens, it'd be something I'd be looking at. Same thing with IBM. I've sold puts on IBM. Franklin Resources I've done really well with recently. It's up again today. It's been up quite a bit. I actually got assigned some Franklin Resources, or BEN, I believe it's its ticker symbol. And since I think I was down 10%, now I think I'm up 10% in Franklin Resources. So this has turned out to be a really good tool too, and you can also do it by time frame. And they also have a membership where you can join and do more details. I'm not an affiliate of any of these, so when you click on the links below, it's just literally a link. I'm currently not looking at becoming an affiliate for one of these companies. I believe they do have it. I don't know about this one, but I believe what is it, the Barchart, or I can't remember the name, Bar Barchart, I believe, does have an affiliate program. So these two have worked out quite well, and I've been looking at this. You can see 2021, since I started selling options, and pretty much every one of these dogs of the Dow have plenty of expirations and quite a bit of strikes. So I believe almost every one of them, I'm pretty sure nearly every one of them currently is optionable and has good options. So that's the end of this part of the video. I'm next going to jump into my Schwab account and share with you some of the tools that I use there. So hang with me. Let's jump into that next part of the video. Okay, now I've opened up my Schwab account and I want to share with you some of the research tools that you have at your disposal if you work with Schwab. If you work with any of the other brokers, they probably have something very similar. So here you've got research tools, you've got stock screeners, preferred screener, you've got a lot of different screeners. ETF screener, you can compare ETFs just like stocks. Same thing with mutual funds. You can look at fixed income, CDs and Treasury ladder, fixed income screener. So they provide quite a bit. The one I use the most is this stock screener. And let's bring that up. So here, and they all work in pretty much a similar fashion. To the left, you've got the different criteria you can choose from. So when I'm using the stock screener, the first thing I do is I want it to be optionable. So I'll say yes over here. So on the right, you'll see the category comes up. So we could say no. Yeah, so they're about half or 2/3 of the stocks. Well, what's it doing here? Let's say yes. Okay, 43.92. So about a third of the stocks are optionable. And then I typically pick things that I'm curious about. Like I could pick price. I might say I want it between $0 and $40. So now it's 217 matches. I can come down here to dividends. Again, I'm a big dividends investor, so I want an annual dividend yield of anywhere from 3 to 6%. I've got 313. So you can see as you add more and more screens, you're, actually it's only 24 matches at this point. So I could also say 2 to 3%, because again, if you're looking at a company that's growing dividends, and that's the other criteria I want to add. Let's do the 10-year dividend growth rate, and let's say we want to do, let's see, what if they're, nothing over 50, 25 to 58, 15 to 25. So this is for the past 10 years, these companies have been increasing the dividends anywhere from 15 to unlimited. It says here over 50%, but I've seen crazy scenarios where they've like tripled their dividends in this amount of time. So it'd be like 300%, and that would be picked up here. Now we can also come down, we could do company performance. We could say, let's say the last 3 years, revenue growth, let's say over 100%. Yeah, none. 50 to 100, 25 to 50, 0, 4. So this may not be a very good criteria. Let's do Let's do 5 years. Let's see if it gives us 33. So we'll do 5 and 15. So 124. That's the dividend. So actually, let's widen the dividend growth rate. So here, 100. We still stuck to even fewer, 15. So that's not bad. And that's revenue growth rate over 5 years, 15 to 25%. So I've got 15 companies I want to work with. And then I also want to look at earnings growth. Let's again do 5 years. And I'm starting from the high point. I want to just get the companies that are getting the most. Well, I want to have a little more than. So this, you would think, would be everything. Let's switch this and do 3 years. But you can see, you can play around, and you can actually spend a lot of time doing this. Might be the same 3, 5, 8. 8. So we'll stick to 8. So for 3 years, pretty good earnings growth rate. The other factor I like to use is financial strength, and I like to do debt to equity and keep it less than 1 or no debt. And now we can view the matches. And it leaves the information at the top, and here are the companies that it found. Now, even though you've screened these and you've used that kind of information, you always do need to look at these companies and be sure before you invest in them and dig a little deeper just to be sure that they reflect what you're thinking you're seeing in this screener. So I like to sort by the dividend yield. So 5.6 Superior Group companies. Now Cousins Properties I've heard of, and they've got a good dividend. Their current price isn't too bad. 10-year dividend growth, revenue growth. And I probably need to move to the right. Earnings per share growth. So Cousin Properties, let's look at that. Now, of course, with the housing market, it's been hit pretty hard lately. Yeah, Equity Real Estate Investment Trust. And it's near its 52-week low. It's $5 above the low. And you can see it's been hit pretty hard. So let's see how its earnings are doing. And it's been beating, but let's compare it to so yeah, they're definitely down quite a bit, but it could be a good pickup opportunity. They're a well run company. Looks like revenue's done okay, and it looks like cash flow is good. Let's look at their dividends. And this is what I typically do. Even though I've used the screener, I'll jump in here and be sure it looks hunky-dory. So here, let's look at dividends over time. Now they have decreased dividends back in 2020, but it looks like it's trending back up. And again, with it being an a REIT, they're required to pay out 90% of their income as dividends. So that's why it would be fluctuating a bit, but it looks like the trend is overall up, maybe down the last year or two. And we can look here. So yeah, you can see if we close 2022. So it's a little bit all over the place, but not a bad company, something I would consider. Now, the last step I like to do is come over and look at the options. So not much options activity. This is 15 days. So it's not one I would probably want to do. It looks like there's a little bit here. What about 50 days? Yeah, not much. So this is one I probably would not look at selling because it wouldn't have very many good opportunities to earn premium, options premium. So you can see the research tool gives you some good idea, but again, it's real important to jump in. And then, so the fact that it gives you the ability, and like I said before, it's important to dig deeper once you do find a few companies and you've through the screener, and to dig a little bit deeper and be sure it's something you really want. So some of these companies may be optionable, but very limited. That I'd almost say that Cousins Property was not very optionable at all. Now, what I also like about this is watch lists, and I set these up once I find companies I want to invest in, and I like what they do here because you can sort by the day change, so I can look to see who's down that might be a good opportunity, like Cardinal Health or Charles Schwab. And these I've sold options currently with Micron, Big, Cardinal Health. Every one of these I've sold options with. So this is my watch list that I use quite often, and a lot of the times I'll use it here. And I also like to look at the 52-week range. Like Micron is close to its low. Big is definitely close to its low. It's been hit hard due to inventory, but here Citigroup is also near its low and it's down a bit today. And then you can also look at valuations. You could see, what their PE ratio is, their last price. You can look at profitability. You can also sort, like you can look at return on equity. You'll notice that was Apple at the top, which has got unbelievable return on equity. Um, so typically when I find something through the screener, I'll add it here and then I'll keep track of these. I can also look at, I believe earnings will show dividend yields, so I can see what they're paying dividend wise. So Big is paying a fairly good dividend. You can also see the X dates. So this is where I get a lot of my X dates that I add to my weekly planning spreadsheet that I release to my members every week, either on Sunday or Monday. But yeah, so I've worked with Big, I've worked with LEG, Liggett and Platt, which is paying close to 5% now. It's been hit pretty hard lately. Again, with these rising interest rates, Realty Income has stayed pretty close to. It hasn't gone up much at all. We can also sort by symbol. So if we want to find one easily, we can come down to Realty Income. You can see here it's traded in a $20 range, but usually it stays within pretty close to the 60. It usually goes from 60 to 65 from what I've found recently. So here you can see 62 to 63. But Realty Income is another REIT, and they're forced to pay dividends, so we can jump into it. So you can click on it and you can dig a little deeper. And you can see here it's been hit pretty hard and now it's recovering. And it will show you upcoming earnings. So it's kind of been a mixed blessing. They got hit really hard at the beginning of the year. And their dividends, I believe, has stayed the same. Well, actually, they've still been increasing dividends, just not as much. Another thing I do like to look at is I like to come down to this payout ratio. So dividend coverage ratio, those are pretty high. This is low. It's so, again, because I have to pay 90% of their dividends out. So it means their earnings haven't been hit too bad, but they typically always have good a lot of option activity. They're one of the biggest REITs that you can sell options on. So if we come here, we look down, and you'll see you can see all the activity, all the open interest, all the volume, and that's typically the case for Realty Income. And it's definitely I've worked with them too. I currently have a covered call, I believe, with them, and I've done fairly good with them too. So those are the different things between the screener, the watch list. You can do a lot of nice nifty things within Schwab, and the ETF screener is very similar to the stock screener, so you can also use that. So I encourage you to kind of jump in and play around, especially if you're working with Schwab, because as you work with these screeners, you find little tricks that make it a little bit easier to work with. So hope you enjoyed this, and hope you're having a wonderful day, and thanks for joining me.